think we'll get started. Welcome to 2026. It's a it's a new year and a new time, and the market is certainly playing a role in all of our businesses. And I think it's a perfect conversation to have today on the CCPIA Roundtable. Um, we're running businesses, and you got to think of it really that way. In maybe other disciplines like home inspections, it's very much a commodity. And when you think about home inspections, you don't really have a lot of leeway. Your market bears what your market bears, and if you're the fifth inspector being called, you're in direct relationship with the other five ahead of you and maybe the other three behind you. But in commercial, you're very much setting the tone. And if you don't look at it like a true business relationship, then you've got a really good chance of not being as successful as you might be if you look at it from a different lens. And that's what I want to spend the first little bit of this roundtable talking about is maybe changing your lens or looking introspectively on yourself of of what it takes for you to run your business successfully. And with that, I want to look very specifically at what we're describing as the win loss analysis. I'm not sure if you're doing that now with your businesses, or if this is something that is completely foreign to you. But for me, this was the cornerstone of everything I did. And so let me share the screen with you. And really, when I ran my business and was looking at everything, I tracked every phone call, inquiry or not, including sales calls, and I tracked every client. So that at the end of every week, every month, every quarter, every year, I had a strong handle on my business. And whether I want to use a chart like you see here that's vivid and fresh and jumps at you, or whether I'm doing something just as simple as a lineal spreadsheet, I'm tracking everything. Now, I want to go back a minute. And when I look at this on this chart, I can see right in front of me this loss reason breakdown. Well, my opinion on loss reason breakdown is simple. My losses really don't have to be tracked because I didn't lose many. Because when I sent my proposals out, let's start at the beginning. My proposals were not sent out with a number with a question mark at the end. And my price will be $3,000. Is that okay? Question mark. Here's my proposal. By the time my proposal was sent out, my client was at a 90 to 95% they're going to hit me stage, because I've set the stage, made the internal sales, and I did all those efforts so that at the end of the day, when I look at my clients, my reason for loss was mitigated. But that being said, I will have clients that don't book us, and we want to look at those things. So tracking this will help me be more successful and create a better sustained business. And so using some of these tools allows us to keep track of our clients. When I did it, was it a win? Was it a loss? And I can track what style of building. Now, all of this was provided to you as you signed up for this roundtable. And if you don't have it, it's right on our website. And if you Google, if you search on Google, if you search in our screen, you'll see proposal win loss analysis, and all this is here. I like this so much, and I'll carry over and ask some. I'll let you ask some questions here in a half a second, because I really enjoy tracking my property types more than anything else, because that's actually showing me trends of what's going on in my marketplace and allows me to adjust my pricing. And if you're really looking at your business introspectively, you can start seeing those trends, and maybe you can adjust your prices. If all of a sudden I'm in multifamily world and I'm just not paying attention to it, but it just keeps showing up, then maybe my multifamily is very attractive, or that's just what's moving in my marketplace, and I'll adjust my prices accordingly. And then on top of it, I'm tracking my leads, my proposal dates, and then I can carry all the way over to interview. The interview is important. And oh, by the way, all of this is adjustable for yourself. You can adjust lists. We've got all of this templated for you, including some how to use and some charts. But as I'm doing this and I have a loss, it's important for you to debrief those losses. Because let me ask a question of the group. Have you ever been to a party and you thought you had the best time ever, and you were socializing and dancing and having just the best time, and then you find out a couple weeks later there was another party and you didn't get invited? And you didn't get invited because maybe you danced weird, or you didn't smell good, or you had bad breath, or something else. Well, they don't usually tell you you're not invited. They usually just don't invite you. And that's what happens on in the inspection world, is you don't get told you're getting fired. You just don't get invited to the next time. And so if you get a chance and you're getting some losses, and let's say your losses are higher than what you believe should be there, then that's when you should initialize some form of debrief, some form of questions. And reaching out to your client, there's nothing wrong with that. And you could reach out to them and ask them questions. Easy questions like, hey, why did you not choose me? Or what of my proposal was not attractive to you? Asking these things. Things like, what factors did you decide that you needed? Because maybe there's an offering you're not offering. And if your competitor is offering it, or is there a way to improve? This is not like the waitress that walks, or server that walks up to you at the restaurant and asks you how your meal is. This is literally you wanting to improve and grow your business. And so we've created on this document a simple 7-step win-loss analysis process that can help you debrief your jobs. So with that, I'd love to open it up, see if you have any comments before we open up the normal roundtable event. Is anybody doing things like this right now with your business?
Hey, Rob, everybody, Brad
Brad.
here. I've, in the last year that I've been a member of CCPIA and been following your doctrine, slowly been implementing kind of the sales process that you advocate is on the website, and the tracking. And I'll tell you, at first, it really was kind of different, because people there is a tendency, even the best of conditions, that commercial agents or commercial clients, even though they're different from the residential, do kind of call, and maybe they don't know anything else to ask. They just want to know price or availability. And you try and start slowing them down, and they may give you the indication that they're in a hurry and this, that, or another. But I started sending out a proposal that I based on what you and Maggie had created, and tailored it. And I have then kind of a standard email template that I started sending after our discussion, that will have then a letter that I'll tailor the letter, even though it's really kind of a template and I'm just filling in variables, pre-purchase, pre-lease, square footage, and kind of following along with what you're recommending. And I'll tell you, it really has helped, even though there's been an effort needed on my side, as well as then confidence that that's the direction that I'm wanting to go. And inevitably building a better dialogue with the client, a better closing at the end, and a better understanding of the scope of the inspection, which can work good for both of us. And so now I'm kind of on the tail end of, I've just started, now that I have a letter, this is what I'm doing. That's kind of a rudimentary version of what you're showing here. I have a letter that I'll save per month that then is the custom cover letter, if you want to call it that, or the proposal that I then have a PowerPoint. And so then that is kind of a queue, and that I use that saved Word document or PDF in that file, like for December. And then that kind of gives me a view of what quotes I have out there and want to follow up on. And then ultimately, I'll either put it into a win or loss folder for that month. And so that's kind of where I am. And it's taken kind of a paradigm change. And there was quite a bit of work that went into kind of creating the template and getting things to where I had the emails ready to go and starting to streamline things. And I'll just say, I'm not all the way there yet, but my win-loss ratio has improved substantially, and I have a lot more confidence, and I think I'm providing a lot better presentation to the clients. That's all.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, it's key. Confidence is key, but remembering your inside sales is second, because they're calling you or they've reached out to you through whatever means, right? Whether it's your website, whether it's a referral, whether it's a search, or whether it's a past client. As they reach out to you, you've got to make sure that your offerings are up to snuff with what they want. And that can only be done with the right questions. And if you lose, then going back and figuring out why first, or two, this doesn't have to be a contrary. This can be on the wins. Hey, while you're talking to the client, why did you choose me? What did I say that convinced you that I was going to be your best? Because if that's the case, then I'm gonna ramp that up. There's a couple on the call that have been in classes before, and you've heard when I've, and I'm not being boastful, but I ran well into the 80 percentile in bookings to calls on commercial inspections, because I listened to the client, and I not only priced the job to the client's expectations, and that wasn't cheap, but I also, if you can fill their pain points, then there's no other contrary other than your price. They can't choose you because you wore a red shirt and I like black shirts, or whatever that other contrary could be of why one wouldn't choose you over somebody else. But in tracking, using a dashboard like we're showing here, or or any other tracking you devise, by just having this at my opportunity, I can look at this in a very fast snapshot and know where I'm at. Because if I've picked, and I use, I use different things, and if I pick a number that is my expectational number, and let's say you decide you want to pick 75%. That means 75% of all calls that come in, you want to successfully book as an inspection. And you're willing to say 25% of them, they're not going to choose me for XYZ, whatever those reasons are. And 75% will choose me because of ABC. And you choose what those are. And as soon as you drop down below that 75, you better ramp up your analysis, whether you're using this wonderful document that we have here of why and hows, and then implement these steps of analysis in the process of questions to ask clients, or debrief or something. Then your 75 will go down to 65, 55, 45 until you can pick it back up again. And so you're always, always, always taking a pulse on your marketplace. And I will say with all confidence, I was taking a pulse almost on a weekly basis. And whenever my numbers dropped down, because I had 5 other inspectors on my team that ate because we were successful in commercial. And whenever my numbers dropped down, I knew that those other 5 inspectors were going to have a struggle. And I had a lot of stress on myself to make sure that we were hitting those marks. And so changing something, and maybe even changing some of the smallest of vocabulary in your proposal, or how your proposal looks like, can ramp things up and make incremental changes into what you have. But thank you, Brad, because as I know, when you and I have talked on coaching calls, where you were in your success and loss ratios, and so it's nice to hear that, and where you're heading. Anybody else have any comments on win losses before we open it up to anything else? Excellent. Um, so with that, with the roundtable, does anybody have anything they want to bring up, or any questions you have in the market right now? It's a quiet month. How is the commercial market going on in your marketplaces right now? Anybody out there banging out a bunch of commercial inspections? No, Doug's shaking his head. I know January is usually a little bit of a lull. I know my old team is still out there doing inspections, but I know January was typically not the briskest month in the world. Well, I do have a couple of announcements. I don't know if anybody's looked at our calendar lately. Um, we have a system, an introduction to commercial systems course starting tomorrow for 3 mornings. It's basically an abbreviated portion of what we typically do in an introduction 3 day. Only we're just going to be highlighting all the systems that are found in a commercial. I'm really excited to announce that we're putting the final icing on our cost to remedy course that'll be offered. I believe it's being offered in March on an online fast track. So that'd be 2 mornings. It's really going to be a great course, and deep diving in what it takes to successfully create a cost to remedy that you can add as an ancillary service, or even included as a primary service in your commercial property inspections. We're going to look at estimated useful life. We're going to look at remaining useful lives. We're going to look at some maintenance. We're going to look at different resources you can use to create that estimate, that not exactament, but estimate, to really make a product that your clients can rely on and that you can look professional with. We've got a 3-day course going to come up in California, as well as another one the other opposite side of the country, going to be in Florida. So that's pretty exciting offerings that we've got coming up.
Brad here. Hey, good to hear, Rob. I do have actually a couple kind of technical questions and maybe opportunity to get feedback from some others in the group. So the first one that I had is I have taken the CCPIA online low slope roof course.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I know less than I ever have before. If I look at a TPO roof, if it's fully adhered or mechanically adhered, and I don't know that it matters a whole lot. But what are everyone's thoughts or your thoughts on how I could tell visually, recognizing that you're going to see the fasteners for the insulation. So how do you know if it's which one?
Sometimes,
and what difference does it
sometimes
make?
you can feel it underfoot, Brad. A mechanically fastened or seam fastened roof will almost have a slight pillowing in the field. So when you step on it, this is only for single ply roofs. When you step on it, you might feel a little bit of movement between the ply and the substrate, whether the substrate is foam or any other material. A fully adhered roof, you'll almost not feel that at ever. A mechanically, especially seam, if it's TPO, we really have to worry about the abrase and how it might move. And that's why you'll see walking paths a lot of times on the TPO that might go from the hatchway or the ladderway over to the mechanicals or other systems, because that abrase it as it moves will wear out the underside of that roof a little bit. But I typically, the only way I can tell whether it's fully adhered or seam adhered, it will be looking at those fasteners. And like you say, sometimes those fasteners might be all over because that's how they held down the insulation. But at the end of the day, that's really that's really not something that we'd probably even note what, the difference of. Just understanding the difference for ourselves, this helps us connect the dots. You're muted, Brad.
Oh, there we go. I watched your video on the variable air handlers. I think that's the name for it. They're
Yeah.
up in is that the correct term for it?
VAV boxes.
Yeah, the VAV boxes. So variable air
Volume. Yeah,
volume
whether it's
box.
variable or not variable, they just have a generic term of VAV, or variable air volume boxes. Yes.
Yeah, well, that was great timing because the week before, 2 weeks ago, I had done an office building and I was in the course of trying to determine if the HVAC system, because they had a huge rooftop package unit, like a 90-ton rooftop package unit on the roof, and then they had a boiler. And so I was sure that the boiler meant that it had a hydronic, that was what I would call a hydronic system. And I'm like, I welcome correction in the terms. But what I didn't pick up on was that the rooftop package unit, it wasn't really on the label showing it as a chiller or an air cooler. It actually had heat and air conditioning. So really the where I'm going with it is it drove me to start looking in the ceiling tile, and I started seeing these boxes everywhere. And it was the first time that I've noticed them, but like it said in your video, I may not have always noticed them. And so my question is, are those actually just, they're genuinely, if I understand, an air handler, but it's a specific type of air handler and it would be part of a hydronics. Is that correct?
No, it can be forced air as well, Brad. Uh, if you go back to some of the, maybe not necessarily all the videos, but go to some of the drawings that we have in our gallery. And
Uh-huh.
a VAV box could just be air only. This air flies through it and it opens and closes thermostatically. It could be cool air only. And there's a heating element inside the VAV box that so I might have 55-degree air going into every VAV box in the whole building, coming off of an air conditioning unit or a chiller and cooling tower unit. But I have 55 degrees every day, 365 going into a VAV box. Then downstream at that VAV box, I could have a boiler attached to a radiator or fan.
Yeah.
That takes 55 and
Yeah.
85 or 95.
Yeah.
Or I could have a resistance heater that's electric and heats that air from 55 to 75, 85, so that individual space can be comforted. Or in some buildings, which if you go to our website, you're going to see a couple of mock inspection courses. And if you go to mock inspection course 2, I'm sorry, mock inspection course 1, building 2, which is an 18,000 square foot bank. It has a 55-ton packaged unit on the roof. So that packaged unit supplies both heat and cool. And then individually throughout the building, there are 25 or 30 individual VAV boxes that open and close so that they allow the individual office spaces or zones to control their own destiny, so to speak. They can add a little bit more heat, but what they can't provide is any more cool because the only cooling comes from the package unit. But if the room is too cold, we can introduce a little bit of heat through a resistance heater. And when you have a building like that bank with just a package unit, it doesn't allow that individuality that a boiler and cooling tower chiller system will have, or it doesn't allow that individuality that we have with dual zone, dual condition spaces. So that's where if you just spend a couple of minutes looking at our gallery, you're going to see 4 different air handler configurations, no heat or cool, cool only, heat only, and heat and cool. And you'll see a few different configurations of VAV. Air only, cool, introduce heat, or introduce heat and cool downstream. And that'll help you wrap your arms around it, I think, a little bit more.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Rob. My last question, excuse me, is your last article, I think, that at least I saw in our social media feed from the organization was about lifts. You're calling them lifts. I kind of always thought of the term as a sump pump.
Oh, lift station. Lift station.
Yeah, lift. Yeah. How do you know if those are emulsifiers for sewer or for high groundwater? That's my last question. Thanks.
Great. Basically where they're at. So a groundwater will be tied to things like sunken areas, sunken parking areas, patios, inclined areas, well areas, and you'll typically find any myriad of pumps. But at the end of the day, that pump is probably an inch and a half diameter discharge, unless it has a tremendous amount of water volume. And it does not have to have a lid that's sealed. It could be an open, non vented lid. Now, as soon as we introduce effluent or waste, things like toilets, urinals, showers, laundries, anything that creates waste that is located lower than the main building discharge pipe has to have a lift station. So in that article and video that you saw, we're in a sunken area, and we've actually got an array of 3 large lift stations, because this particular sunken area is 15 foot below the ground level above. And we have locker rooms, we have mechanical rooms, we have several other areas that are creating solid waste. And all of those areas have to be lifted up to be able to discharge into the municipal sewer or private septic system, because stuff only flows downhill. And so if you're looking at a smaller system that might be located on the interior of a building, your first tip off is to look at the discharge pipe. On a grinding or macerating system, a pump, that pump has a minimum discharge pipe of 2-inch diameter, where a liquid or non-macerating grinding system will have 1.5 inches diameter. And then whatever vessel it is, it has to be sealed. That means gasketed seal around all openings and vented through the venting system or the plumbing vent system, because there is gases and odors in there that need to be vented up and above the roof line. Those are my tip offs. First, I identify where's my discharge point. Okay, it's over here. Even if it's in a slab, let's say I've got a building that's got a slab in one half of the building and I've got a sub basement in another half of the building, I'm pretty comfortable that any waste that's generated under that slab area, either it goes out the building under the slab or down underneath the sub basement. If I don't see it, I know it's overhead. And so I locate those, then I find my pump, then and I won't see the grinder, because that grinder is located under that sealed lid and you are not required to open those lids. And then the next, if you can't figure it out, ask a person of knowledge. If there's no person of knowledge, all else fails, write on your report that the pump configuration could not be verified. Recommend verifying if this is a grinding pump and the last time the pump was serviced. And then you're all covered.
Oh, thank
Good
you.
question. Anybody else have anything this morning? Well, thank you for taking the time. Again, looking at your proposals is important. Looking at your process is important. Create a proposal that looks great. Create a proposal that will grab a client. That's baiting the water. And then once you've issued your proposal, if you've issued it with or distributed it with or solicited it with your clients, and it was done with the quandary of, I'm putting it out there, they haven't booked the inspection yet, then follow up. I'll give you a great example of understanding win-loss, and and I'll talk about him. I talk about my brother. My brother's a contractor. He's a head estimator of a fairly large commercial contracting business. And he put a proposal. He put a proposal out there, an estimate out there, for a multi-million-dollar project at a state park, and he lost it by $1 million. And in his analysis of why he lost that $1 million to his next contract was the difference in material distributing. So he was going to be building bridges throughout canyons and cliffs throughout a state park. And his competitor owned a barge that they could moor on the river next to the state park and the cliffs and be able to crane 90% of the materials into the canyons from the barge. And he was going to airlift them with helicopters. And so the difference between him not owning a barge and using a helicopter was the exact $1 million difference between and he wouldn't know that unless he debriefed, because $1 million loss is a big loss. And sometimes you can lose a job for $5, but that was the difference. And he debriefs every job that they don't win. And I would encourage you to consider debriefing every job you don't win. Now, in win-loss, I'll leave it with this. Does anybody have any goals for this year? I listened to Jim Collins. I don't know if you've ever read any of his books. He has a book called Good to Great. Why is one company good? Why is one company great? And in that book, he uses a phrase called the BHAG. And the BHAG stands for big, hairy, audacious goal. That's the goal you have for this year. So has anybody on this call put a BHAG on your whiteboard? Have you wrote something down? Do you have a number in mind? I'm not going to hold you to it. Now, if you don't have a number, I would recommend you write one down. Put it on there. I used to give all of my team these 3x5 cards, and I would make them write a number down. And then I tell them, I want you to put that on the visor of your vehicle. So every day when you're driving, you see that number in your peripheral. Go grab a dry erase. I mean, I'm famous for my kids. I use a dry erase marker and I write on their mirrors in their bathrooms a phrase or a goal, or that's how, hey, take the garbage out, you knucklehead, or something. And that's where they'd see it every morning as they're hopefully brushing their teeth and combing their hair and doing those things. So write down your number, make a resolution, figure out something that is going to be able to have you reach out, and don't make that number so unattainable. If this is your first year, don't say I want to do 5,000 commercial property inspections. But maybe you say things like, I want to do 1 a month, or 2 a month, or 5 a month. And then figure out how you're going to make it there. Am I going to go to a network group? Am I going to join an association? Am I going to prospect 12 times this month? I'm going to spend every Friday afternoon. I'm going to make Friday afternoons the day I call back every client from that week and ask them if they read the inspection report and if they have any questions. Figure out a way that you're going to use to make that goal, to get to there. And then as soon as you hit it, increase it. As soon as you hit it, increase it. And every year or every quarter, over and over and over, you're going to build those habits. Anything else for me, team? Well, you know what I'm going to say. Go out there, stay safe, follow the ComSop. This is a fun endeavor, and it's going to be a great 2026. I know it, and keep watching our website. Keep up with the newsletter. We've got a lot of really interesting things coming up, and some really fun things are going to be dropping in the next month. And so pay attention, and I think it's gonna be a wonderful year for all of us. Be safe, everybody. We'll talk to you next month.
Thanks, everyone.